But first, as we know, this is the big story for the Liberal Party and the coalition. They are at a crossroads right now, yet it seems the moderates are intent on ensuring the party remains unelectable, as a lot of people say. Liberal Andrew Bragg has threatened to quit the front bench if the coalition walks away from net zero. This is what he had to say this morning on the ABC.
So just to be clear here, when you say you're not going to change your principles, am I right to interpret that as if the party doesn't stay in Paris and some sort of net zero commitment, you'll quit?
Well, sure, but I don't imagine that we would ever leave Paris. I mean,
Okay.
we're a party of government, right? We're not a fringe party. We're not, fringe dwellers.
Yeah, and as the Liberal Party prepares to debate the Paris Agreement on Wednesday and Thursday this week, Senator Bragg even went as far as to bizarrely describe the stance against net zero as like a fatwa, which is actually an official statement from an Islamic religious leader.
Well, you can't have a fatwa on two words. I mean, it's ridiculous.
So if there is a fatwa on two words, as you put it, what does that mean for the leader?
But you can't have a fatwa on two words. This is the international standard. I mean, trying to pretend that you're not going to say two words is absolutely ridiculous.
Meanwhile, the Shadow Energy Minister, Dan Tehan, has left the door open to extend the life of Australia's coal-fired power stations and potentially subsidise coal and gas. He was on Sky News earlier today.
Would you look then at government subsidies for either coal, gas or nuclear power stations?
We will have those discussions and we will obviously, our policy will come out of those discussions, but there is no doubt that working with the state governments to make sure that coal-fired generation can continue at the moment is absolutely crucial.
So, Danica, let's get rid of the outrage and the offence about people saying, oh, we're going to extend the life of coal and gas. The reality is this journey that we're on, and I think we all agree, we've got to reduce our emissions somehow and people can do their own bit. I might add, the one thing that people could do is get solar panels on your roof. That's probably an easy way to do it. But these large-scale projects that require billions of dollars of subsidies and investment, we've had all this money spent on hydrogen, and it just isn't getting us to these targets as quickly as possible. We're going to need something else. And the two easy options to keep the lights on and also add to the mix or keep going in the mix are coal and gas. And the more that the coalition can say, this is our path and we need coal and gas as part of it, I think people will start to realise, well, we want to get our energy bills down. This is a pretty sensible way of doing it.
I do agree in that obviously we need a plan B to keep the lights on in this country because we are, frivolously closing down all these coal-fired power plants with no plan B for energy generation in this country. But subsidies, James, have not worked very well for Labor. Let's be honest. And this is not just federally, this is around the country. I mean, yes, it's great we're handing out subsidies left, right and centre, but what happens when those peter out? Of course, our bills still go in the opposite direction. So I'm not 100% sure if subsidising coal and gas is necessarily the answer here. But I do agree something needs to be done. But we've got to talk about Andrew Bragg. Let's talk about what he said today. Firstly, he said that net zero should not become a fatwa, which I just thought was just such a ridiculous comparison to make. I mean, this is actually a serious energy topic to be throwing around comments like that. They even went on to say in that interview that leaving Paris would put Australia in a grouping with the baddies like Iran, Syria and Azerbaijan. What kind of, again, a comparison is that? We have nothing to do with those sorts of countries. It is a very weird thing to say. Don't forget our number one ally in the United States, they're not going to Paris. We export coal and gas to China and to India, two countries not even signed up to net zero 2050 themselves. Big emitters are throwing their hands up. Why should we be the ones doing all the heavy lifting?
Well, that's right. And China's 30% of the world's emissions on their own. And the thing is, this is a very tough and very controversial path to take because people say, OK, if you're going to scrap net zero, and the Prime Minister has said this himself, if you don't believe in net zero, you don't believe in climate change. Now, we know that is not the case because Australia is 1% of the world's emissions.
Yes.
We export more than we burn here. If they had the courage of their convictions, the Labor Party and the Greens, they'd say, stop all coal and gas exports tomorrow because we can't afford anything to go out because it's ending up in the atmosphere. So this just needs a very sensible but very brave point of difference that the coalition needs to be going out, getting the support of the farmers on board who are being railroaded by this at the moment, critically getting the support of industry on board, which are simply saying now we can't stay open. Power prices are too high. All the experts say oh, they might come down in 10 years, but we're not sure. 10 years?
Well,
let's
we
talk
don't
about
have
it
that time.
right now.
Exactly.
And then everyone from your mum and dad to your grandma and grandpa that are at home that are struggling to pay the quarterly energy bill, let's start talking about getting prices down now. 4 years ago, the Coalition backed this in. It would be a very noble thing for them now to say, look, this didn't work. We started it. We're going to own this. But you have to show what your point of difference is. You can't just say we're scrapping it and we're going to stuff around. What is your energy plan? And I haven't heard that in full just yet.
No, we haven't heard that at all. And this is why I think that the Liberals have to actually go hard this week at their meetings. They've got Wednesday and Thursday, and then they'll come to a final decision on Sunday. But even this energy policy is being dragged out all week, as it has all year. But you know what? If the moderates want to quit, like Andrew Bragg, I say go for it. Go join Labor. Go join the Teals, go join the Greens, because it is the moderates in the party right now that are holding them back. Even late this afternoon, another moderate, New South Wales Liberal, Maria Kovacic, she told The Guardian Australia, whether we like it or not, net zero is more than a phrase. It's a proxy for taking climate change seriously. Practical energy policy that lowers emissions and lower power bills will. Well, as to your point, James, our power bills are going in the exact opposite direction. It was only a few days ago that AGL came out and said that they now have proof that renewable energy is more expensive than coal. And you know that at home, because every time you open your bills every quarter, you're getting a surprise. We were told it's going to go down the other direction, yet we're on this fantasy ride of renewable energy, and we're going in the opposite direction. I think now is the time to go out and sell it. Of course, there's going to be people in teal seats, for example, that are not going to be happy with this. But there is time between now and an election to go out and put the case as to why net zero had to be dumped.
Yeah, but at the same time, you've got a very tricky situation where the Liberals, and I'm not just saying that these are moderates, but I've heard this from senior people in the party, and not elected people, but behind the scenes, that say, mate, it would be madness. It'd be madness to doing it. And they're jumping at shadows, and they're worried that any sort of dumping of net zero could be political suicide. Now, my argument against that is that for 2 elections, the Coalition has backed it in. They created it. Scott Morrison 2022, Peter Dutton this time around. And without a point of difference, people said, well, we may as well just back the guys that actually fully believe in it and have a plan and already started that. So,
well, they still lost.
Yeah, and they did. And they've lost dozens of seats in those 2 elections. It has not served them. So they need to show what the alternative is. And you can still do that by saying, we are reducing emissions. Australians have got household solar. We're doing our best. But it's the large-scale projects that bureaucracies in government are wrongly thinking can keep the lights on for us. 82% renewables across the country. Forget about it. We can do our bit, but not to that level.
And just one more point as well. Throughout the election campaign, you'll recall that the Liberal Party in particular targeted voters in outer areas. But it was actually those voters in outer areas who turned against the Liberal Party. And these are the people that are suffering the most. These are the mums and dads who are really struggling with their bills, struggling to put food on the table. They weren't thinking about net zero at that election. They were just thinking more about the number one topic, which is cost of living. So it's these people, in my view, that you want to go out and actually target. And I also think by talking about net zero again, it puts Labor in a worse position, because they're going to have to confront the issues again, and voters are going to go, well, hang on a second, our power bills are going in the opposite direction. So in a way, I feel like it's actually done the Liberal Party maybe.
Well, but also, if you have to forget those teal seats, you just forget about them. If climate, in some of those areas, the affluent areas, cost of living is not the number one issue. It's climate change, and they can afford high bills, and they can afford to lecture everyone else. You've got to give up a few of those to win the western suburbs and the other areas back where people are struggling, small businesses struggling. Just do it. Just do it.
No, look, that's a fair point.